In this video, we're going to introduce some terminology related to voting rights. In discussions of elections and voting, you may have heard the term franchise. That's the term that's used to describe the right to vote. It is referred to as the franchise. The other end of the spectrum is the term disenfranchise, which refers to restricting the right to vote or removing someone's right to vote. And over time, there's been a bit of a dialogue between those two positions, between those that want to expand the franchise, open up voting rights to more people, and those who have wanted to keep it restrictive. And it's almost like a tug of war between expanding and contracting the right to vote. Most countries used eligibility requirements that restricted the right to vote, and they were used to create barriers that prevented certain groups from participating in democratic society, such as sex-based discrimination. In many countries, women were denied the right to vote. It was only men that could vote. There might have been also racial or ethnic barriers that prevented certain groups from participating in elections. Economic requirements ensured that only property owners could vote. People needed to own a certain amount of property in order to access the franchise. So around the world, those restrictions were used as barriers to voting. Over time, there were social movements that tried to break down some of those barriers. The suffrage movement, for example, sought to expand voting rights to women, and suffragettes, as they were called, such as Emmeline Pankhurst in England, would protest. They would show up at meetings. They would chain themselves to Buckingham Palace to the point where they got arrested. And the idea being they wanted to slowly try to change the views of society in hopes of changing the laws and expanding the franchise to women. Over time, their efforts were successful as countries adopted formal legal rights for women, Canada doing so formally in 1918. This expansion of voting rights can be seen around the world. Prior to 1850, virtually nobody had access to voting rights. As more countries started democratizing, that right to vote was extended to men. And then by 1950, we see an explosion of voting rights around the world. Currently, most countries do have some basic eligibility criteria for voting, such as citizenship or residency requirements. You've got to live there and be a citizen to vote in most cases. And other jurisdictions will have age requirements. There's a minimum voting age, such as 18 or 20. Many jurisdictions right now, just getting back to that whole dialectic and tug of war, are considering expanding voting rights to those that are 16 years of age. Many for local elections, but some for national elections as well. Now, there's also a trend of countries being more restrictive. The VDEM project has observed that more and more people are living in regimes that can be described as electoral autocracies. These aren't dictatorships. These are places that have elections, but the elections aren't necessarily free and fair. So either the right to vote is being restricted, or the leaders are manipulating the results to a point where people's votes don't matter. So just to recap, the right to vote is called the franchise. Historically, it's been very restrictive with a gradual trend over time to expand eligibility requirements and open up voting to new groups of people. If there's one trend that's concerning, it's a growing trend of autocratization, where the right to vote is being curtailed around the world.